Have you ever wondered about the origins and evolution of left-wing extremism? This term encompasses a broad spectrum of ideologies that promote social, political, or economic change through revolutionary means. We're talking about anarchists, communists, and other anti-capitalist collectives here. This is not to be confused with liberalism or progressivism, which typically operate within the framework of democratic institutions and advocate for reform rather than revolution. Left-wing extremists often advocate for the overthrow of existing governments, the abolition of capitalism, and the establishment of a socialist or communist society. The tactics they employ can be as peaceful as protests and strikes, or as disruptive as vandalism. In extreme cases, we've seen acts of terrorism. It's crucial to remember, though, that not all left-wing movements engage in violence. Many champion change through nonviolent means such as grassroots organizing, political activism, and education. Now that we have a basic understanding, it's time to delve into the history and evolution of left-wing extremism. The roots of left-wing extremism can be traced back to the 19th century. This was a time when the world was undergoing radical changes, with the Industrial Revolution creating sharp divides between the haves and the have-nots. It was against this backdrop of social and economic inequality that left-wing extremism began to take shape, fueled by ideologies like anarchism and communism that sought to dismantle the existing power structures and establish a more equitable society. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, thinkers like Karl Marx and Mikhail Bakunin presented a critique of capitalism and proposed alternatives that emphasized collective ownership and workers' rights. These ideas resonated with many who felt marginalized by the prevailing socio-economic order, giving rise to a variety of left-wing movements and parties across the globe. As we move further into the 20th century, left-wing extremism began to manifest in more militant ways. A notable example of this can be seen in Italy with the rise of the Red Brigades. Formed in the late 60s, this group was known for its violent tactics, including bombings, kidnappings, and assassinations, all aimed at destabilizing the Italian government and establishing a revolutionary communist state. Meanwhile, in Germany, the Baader-Meinhof group, also known as the Red Army faction, emerged as a force of left-wing extremism. Like the Red Brigades, they too engaged in a campaign of violence and terror, carrying out bombings and assassinations in the name of revolution. These are just two examples among many. The 20th century was rife with instances of left-wing extremism, from the Weather Underground in the United States to the Shining Path in Peru. These groups, though diverse in their ideologies and tactics, were united in their radical opposition to capitalism and their willingness to use violence to achieve their goals. The 20th century saw a surge in left-wing extremism, but what about today? Let's move into the contemporary era. As we delve into the present, we'll explore how left-wing extremism has evolved and adapted to the changing political landscape. Tune in as we continue our journey through this complex and often misunderstood aspect of political history. In the 21st century, the nature of left-wing extremism has evolved. The ideologies remain rooted in the quest for social, political, and economic change, but the tactics used to achieve these goals have seen a significant shift. In the past, left-wing extremism was often associated with violent acts of protest, such as bombings, kidnappings, and assassinations. Groups like the Red Brigades in Italy and the Baader-Meinhof group in Germany used these methods to promote their vision of a post-capitalist society during the 70s and 80s. However, in contemporary times, many left-wing movements have pivoted towards non-violent means to effect change. Rather than resorting to violence, they are harnessing the power of grassroots organizing, political activism, and education. These are seen as more effective and sustainable tactics to challenge the status quo and advocate for a more equitable world. The focus has shifted from overthrowing governments to building power within communities. Education and political activism are seen as tools to raise awareness about systemic issues and empower individuals to take action. The emphasis is on creating change from within the system rather than destroying it. While the goals of left-wing extremism remain largely the same, the methods have evolved to reflect a changing world. The focus on nonviolent action and community empowerment reflects a more nuanced approach to achieving social, political, and economic change. As we can see, left-wing extremism has undergone significant changes over the years. Left-wing extremism is a complex and evolving phenomenon. From its roots in revolutionary movements that shook the world, it's transformed into a multifaceted entity. Today it encompasses both violent and non-violent strategies, ranging from protest and political activism to vandalism and, in extreme cases, terrorism. It's crucial to remember the term doesn't blanket all left-wing ideologies, but a spectrum that includes anarchists, communists, and other anti-capitalist groups. Understanding the roots and evolution of left-wing extremism provides context for current events and the broader political landscape.